also the My Bus, Next Bus information, so people can see a reader board in 2 locations about when the bus will be coming. One of the things I wanted to clarify is that's something that we're working very closely with King County Metro to put on the streets. Wanted to make sure that that partnership was clear. Another thing I mentioned was state-of-the-art bus technology and a desire to eventually get to the clean hybrid diesel low-floor buses on the corridor. One of the other things I wanted to, so sort of assuming all those parts of BRT, one thing I wanted to clarify is I mentioned when we summarized what are the transit improvements on the corridor, and there's actually a chart here. I'll try to hold the camera as well as you. And there, this is the southbound bat lane between 145th and 110th. This is the southbound bat lane between 145th and 110th. What I mentioned yesterday is this is where we'd be converting an existing shoulder and adding a full, the bat lane and a sidewalk. What we have with the CMAQ grant is funding to do the design and environmental review from that project. When you hear about requests in RTID and other funding sources, that's to get the money to go ahead and build that sidewalk and build that bat lane. So I wanted to clarify that the money that we've got so far is for design, and we're still looking for future money to build that project. And another clarification that I wanted to make is that when it comes to service improvements, one of the things I mentioned yesterday is that what we are looking at within the coming year is having 15-minute service every day. Plus, right now in the peak hour, it's every 6 to 10 minutes. So that's something that you can start walking out with even without having to check a schedule. And in the future, with RTID and other funding sources, we want to be able to move that service so that it's coming every 10 minutes, all day, every day. That's the goal. So that's my very quick, just things that I didn't say before about the BRT vision. Any questions on that?
Just a quick question, Jimmy. How many stops would there be for Seattle residents within the city limits, south of 145th?
We do have a map that shows most of the stops.
It's about a half a mile spacing. It would be the current spacing.
Okay, great.
And how many
There's a lot.
expanded transit hours will be charged to Seattle for this?
And the service hours that we are using to get them to every 15 minutes is we are taking that out of our west sub-area allocation. And that's something that we've been working with King County Metro to decide on where to put our limited service hours.
I mean, we have a very limited amount of expansion, correct?
Right.
And we would be drawing down from that expansion?
Yes.
What percentage of that drawdown, I mean, assuming that this bus services Shoreline or wherever else it goes, what percentage of that expansion would be coming from the Seattle?
We're still working on some of the details of that with King County Metro. We probably would be spending quite a third to half of some of our allocation to get the service up to every 15 minutes. The other place that we're looking at for weekend improvements would be from service efficiencies, so that the other remaining service hours that we have, we can look at other corridors throughout the community.
Has that been determined to be our priority?
Yes, that's something that we have been talking about with King County Metro to make it a priority.
Has that been determined somehow to be a policy that makes it the priority for the city?
Yes.
And what determined that?
Looking at when we've done our Seattle Transit Initiative and looking at the key corridors for bus rapid transit and high-capacity transit, when you look at where light rail runs and where the future monorail will be running, and also some of our key transit needs.
Basically, a study that the mayor's office did on that whole sort of transportation, and that was selected as the policy for the use of expanded transit hours.
Looking at where our key network is and where the key resources are that we don't have other transit service
I
to
understand
provide.
the rationale. I'm just trying to figure out if we have set a policy by council that is our priority. That's what I'm asking.
We never have discussed it. We did identify Aurora as a key priority.
Under the study,
for
we
bus
kept,
service.
we kept looking at that.
But we
But I'm
never-
not sure any
never looked at the
policy was
differentiation.
established. And I guess I'm asking, before we make this leap, should we talk about the policy and make a decision?
Well, I think that's a question that we should take up as a council. To what extent, and what the boundaries of that decision are, I guess, is the other question that we need to think about.
And
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
yeah.
you know,
One of the items that we did suggest for future transit our Transportation Committee is giving you an overview of the different options for service allocation this year. So we'd be happy to come back and get into more detail.
Great.
You know, I'd also add as a member of the Regional Transportation Committee that if Seattle decides to forego this, there are many other communities in the suburban cities who would love to have this additional service that are ready in line.
That's correct, yeah. And the Regional Transit Committee did identify the Aurora as a corridor.
No,
as
I
a
mean, the
region,
study
yeah.
that Mayor Shell was working on, used that as a priority as 522. But I mean, the Aurora was a priority. I just didn't know if that's a policy that we want to recommend be used to Metro as our priority for use, then I think we ought to do that somehow. So I can't pick on Metro.
Well, one question I think that we need to ask as a city is, given the
Limited
relatively
number of
modest
hours,
amount
yeah.
of hours that we're going to get, and knowing how many hours this might take, we might need to take a look at that and say, so
Yes.
what is the appropriate level? I think that's where you're headed.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting question.
Because West Seattle may need some, I mean, I'm just not sure, in the ranking, with that few hours, but very, very slim number of hours, how we want it.
Now, you had Victor at the table before, and you didn't
I
say
know,
that.
but Victor's not here. I got a new person to pick on.
He's still there. He's still there.
He sent me up.
So one thing I will just conclude in terms of the transit improvements, because I know as we talk about the parking, there might be some confusion about what, is that from 100, if you were at 145th and you were heading southbound on Aurora, when we do get the full money to implement the business access and transit lane and build the sidewalks, that would be from 145th going south down to 110th. From 110th to 72nd, currently there's AM parking restrictions. There is for almost the entire length of the corridor right now from 145th into downtown, with the exception of from 62nd down to 38th, just north of the Aurora Bridge. There's no AM parking restrictions, and that is a key choke point for transit right now. So that would be, we would be also looking at doing a business access and transit lane only in the AM peak in that corridor as well. The parking restrictions from 110th to 72nd that we've been discussing quite a bit and have heard several concerns about would be for a general purpose lane at this point, which would give both general purpose and transit a travel time benefit. And Trez is going to get into those details.
So just to spend a few moments talking about the parking restrictions, are we ready to move on to that? Okay,
Yes.
great. So we wanted to get into a little bit more detail today than we were able to yesterday. And just to give you a sense of the context, we do have existing parking restrictions on Aurora from 110th to 72nd in the PM peak going northbound and in the AM peak going southbound. So that's just to give you the context of where we are today. The factors that we considered when considering this new PM peak restriction, again, southbound from 110th to 72nd, were the things that I've listed here. We looked at the transit conditions. For instance, what is the delay of transit currently? What is the ridership? What is the potential ridership? What are the demographics in the corridor that we could draw from to increase that ridership? How many people are working and living in the corridor? Those are some of the transit conditions that we looked at. We looked at traffic conditions. How many vehicles are using this corridor? What is the delay of those vehicles? Are they getting stuck at key choke points as they move through the corridor? And then we looked at the parking conditions. What is the parking use on Aurora? What is the parking use on the side streets of Aurora? And what is the parking use in the off-street parking lots that a lot of businesses currently have? Are those off-street parking lots being used to their full capacity? That was something we considered. We also looked at the pedestrian environment. Are there sidewalks? We know that on parts of Aurora, north of 110th, there aren't sidewalks, so that's something that we were looking at when we were considering the parking restrictions. We also looked at the business environment. I talked about, what is the use of the parking that the businesses currently have on their properties and what are their needs. So those are some of the factors and some of the measurements and ways that we thought to think about those factors when we're talking about using this public right-of-way. What is the best use of the public right-of-way? To be clear, because I think there's been some confusion, especially from the public comments that we heard earlier, the parking restriction that we're talking about from 110th to 72nd is for general traffic. It is not a bus lane. I wanted to be very clear about that. The bus lane, the business access and transit lane, would be from 62nd to 62nd to 38th southbound, and that would be in the AM peak period, again, helping buses get through congestion and giving those transit riders a priority over the single occupancy vehicles that are driving south on Aurora. The current parking conditions, these are just some pictures of what southbound Aurora looks like at 87th around 4 p.m. This is just some snapshots. Isn't meant to definitively say anything, but I just wanted to give you a picture and some of what we've heard from business.
Native Americans tell of a time when our waterways were healthy and Pacific salmon existed in such numbers it was said you could cross a river by stepping upon their backs. But progress has its price, and today we see the price of pollution, shoreline development, and more people reflected in the diminishing return of the salmon. To tell the story of Pacific salmon, in 1992, the Seattle Aquarium created a month of activities to welcome the migrating salmon back home. But as the folks at the aquarium discovered, this is a story to be told through the voices of those whose ancestors for thousands of years lived in connection with the salmon. And so began a relationship between the city-owned Seattle Aquarium and the tribal community of the Pacific Northwest. In 1993, that relationship gave birth to Salmon Homecoming. Held each year in September, Salmon Homecoming draws thousands of people to Seattle's waterfront for 4 full days of food, fun, and festivities. But there is more to Salmon Homecoming than immediately meets the eye. Each year, in a more serious setting, people from all sides of the salmon issue gather to share information, ideas, and to reconnect to the salmon, the environment, and each other. Postponed in the wake of September 11, the forum came back 3 months later as the first production of the Salmon Homecoming Alliance, a new nonprofit organization created to do what no other organization has consistently done: support year-round tribal and non-tribal collaborative efforts toward salmon recovery.
Really what it's about relationships. It's about relationships with our families and our significant others and our children. It's about the relationship we have with the land, the water, and the animals, and the sky. And so when we're talking about salmon recovery, we're talking really about developing good relationships between each other as tribal people and non-tribal people.
And originally when collaboration was started, it was, we'll collaborate with you by telling you what to do. And then you'll listen, and then you'll realize that we know what you should be doing on your land. We know what is best for your culture, and we will tell you that. To a point now where it is going out, and rather than talking at people, it is talking with people, and trying to listen and truly understand how better to do things together.
In addition to collaboration, the forum focused on raising funds so the Alliance can produce the Salmon Homecoming celebration and extend its reach into the community. Activist and visionary Billy Frank Jr. says the ability of the Salmon Homecoming Alliance to preach beyond the choir is important because we are all in this together and must realize what happens to the salmon happens in fact to us all.
We have a plan, but it takes all of us to implement that plan. And it takes the tribes to stand up now and be a leader in this, which they have been in the past. We're all together, we speak with one voice. And we're here to sit down with anybody and everybody to try to make it a better day tomorrow for all of us. And protect them salmon. Them salmon are asking for help. And the salmon sustained us. When everybody come over the mountain and there was nobody here but tribes, they were starving to death. And them salmon were here. They fed all the animals. They fed all the native people. They fed all the non-Indians that came here. You know, now the non-Indians has forgot them. You know, and we're saying, you know, join this alliance. That's one way to make a difference.
Instead of reinventing restoration programs, the Salmon Homecoming Alliance will make a difference by becoming the bridge that links together all salmon efforts and information through tools such as the Salmon Information Network, presently housed at the Seattle Aquarium.
We want to build a virtual library so that you and your neighborhood group or your watershed group can come and you can get the technical information on how to restore your watershed, your stream. You can get the technical information to diagnose it. You can get the information to model, highly complex information on how to model streams. If we develop the place that people can come for that kind of information, information is power, and that information will fuel the public desire to bring salmon back.
What the Alliance can do is get information out to the general public and assist in changing the behavior of the general public in the sense that making the public understand that it's important that salmon be in our lives one way or the other, and to honor the older societies that honor salmon.
And we're trying to make something happen. We're trying to bring the salmon back. We're trying to start this alliance and make it very positive for the next 100 years. You know, we won't all be here next 100 years, but the alliance will still be here, and the salmon will still be here. And all of us will have to keep doing the same thing, and that's bringing that salmon back and making sure that it's part of everything that we're about, and that's life.
The Alliance's work in Seattle is just the first step. Billy Frank and others see the Alliance uniting people from all over the region because Pacific salmon have a long range, and wherever the salmon takes us, that is where the Salmon Homecoming Alliance can go. Galen Goff reporting for TVC.
Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock on Tuesday, February 4th. This is a meeting of the Transportation Committee of the Seattle City Council. I'm Richard Conlon, chair of the committee. We are having a special meeting time today and hope to be able to finish this meeting in an hour and a half. So I'm going to ask everybody to be very succinct in their timing today. I want to announce that our next regular meeting, February 18th, has been postponed. That is the President's Day holiday, and we have postponed it until Friday, February 28th. And that will be at the regular time of 2 p.m. on Friday, February 28th. And the meeting following that will be on Tuesday, March 4th, also at the regular time. So we do have a busy agenda for those meetings coming up. We have some interesting items on the agenda today. We've been joined by Councilmember Richard McIver and Sarah Nelson of my staff. Today, following this report, we will have brief public comment. We will then take up a Metro Transit street vacation for the bus base expansion. We'll then have a briefing on parking meter installation policy, and then a briefing on the Aurora Avenue Bus Express. So our next item is public comment. And if there's any member of the public who would like to address the committee at this point, if you can please come to the microphone. Thank you. And I'll ask you to be as succinct as possible. 2 to 3 minutes at most, please.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Conlon. My name is Philip Gregg. I reside at 1902 2nd Avenue, number 616 here in Seattle. And I may be preliminary before, but I wanted to be certain that it was evaluated and assessed, in terms of the Aurora Express expansion thing. And it's also just a request for information. And referring to the number of boardings and deboardings when the currently Route 358, which is our current route, Aurora Express, departs from Aurora to serve the Green Lake neighborhood and area. And basically, I think it's on Green Lake Way, and then it reaccesses the Aurora by the zoo. And my request is for the assessment and evaluation of bypassing those stops and maintaining on Aurora. And on review of the Aurora Bus Express handout, my impression is that that is what may be contemplated. And I would, I'm uncertain whether to really be a strong advocate for that, because usually that is a frequent deboarding and boarding point for myself to access Green Lake Park and the zoo. But I can also be served there by the Finney route, Route 5, and this is very similar, and that's why I just posed that question, the number of boarders for that, and those